Yeah, I did it on last night. Okay, well, keep it alive.
Perfect.
I'm not telling you, I don't want to do that right now.
So these people here, because they-
Yeah, nobody wants.
Oh, because you just came back.
Yes, nobody yelled word.
I checked it.
I've seen her, that sounds like.
All right, I would like to call the meeting to order at 6:04.
This is your neighbor. Oh, you're right. I live right next to Diane.
You want to go over
Right
the
next to the barn. Yeah, so you got.
previous minutes before we get into the new stuff. Public attendance.
Or no, that's, no, I'm sorry, that's. Now I know which one. Yeah. No, that's the next.
No, that's, have that again.
We know,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And the Seekers are, this is Mrs. Seeker. So next to me is my parents.
All right, I'd like to just go over the meeting minutes.
Yeah,
of the
because I know.
19th.
Paperwork. Okay, so I know, yes.
Turn that down because I can hear myself talking back into it. All right, I motion to approve the meeting minutes of September 19th.
Second.
All those in favor? On to today.
Our possible new members aren't here. Can you skip over that? And you have the agenda.
Hold on. Maybe I have that. What was that?
Possible new members aren't here, so
They are here.
they're not.
Okay.
So I think we skip over that for the moment.
All right, so we have public attendance. If you don't mind, I can have you guys state your name. So we can put it for the record. And we'll start this way and work down.
My name is Anasika. I live in 81 Staples Hill Road.
Okay.
Neighboring with Diane.
Okay,
Suri Road, 114 Staples Hill Road.
okay.
Trisha Blanchard, 55 Staples Hill Road.
Joel Blanchard,
Hi, Joel.
55.
Jeffrey, 114.
Cool.
Thank you, guys.
So I'm guessing you're all here for the pre-application for subdivision.
Possibly.
Okay. It's on the agenda. We can skip, we can come back to the other stuff later and go.
Okay.
to- I would think.
All right, so I wasn't at last meeting, we didn't have a quorum, so we couldn't hold a full meeting, but. So we're gonna jump to the new business, the subdivision pre-application. And obviously you guys are here, questions, concerns. I'm assuming that's why we're all here today, so what can we help you guys with?
Well, I can fill Tom in for 2 seconds on the process,
Okay,
right? Because we have a subdivision ordinance, and in the ordinance, there's 3 steps. The first one is a pre-application, which is just kind of a vision. Here's what the vision is to do something. The second step is an actual preliminary application, which now has more detail and all that kind of stuff. And the third step would be a final application. So last week I brought the pre-application. So you guys all got that in email, but you weren't here.
I got the email, I'm looking at it
Yeah,
now.
so at the same time, I sent it to the abutters, just so people get to know, because everybody's been asking all summer anyway. And so I said, well, let's at least get the conversation started. So that's kind of what happened. And I heard from Anna, and thank you for your lovely and cordial letter. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've not formulated a response yet, but thank you.
I have one question.
Mhm.
How can residents of Canton, particularly the Staples Hill, obtain the subdivision ordinances? Where can I find them? So that I can read them?
So right now, the only way to get it would be to come down to the town office and ask one of the clerks to print you a copy. We're in the process of trying to get all of these ordinances put online, so you can go to our website, which is still in development. So you basically could go there, click a link and actually download the whole thing right there. So unfortunately, right now, the only way to get it is to come to the town office.
But if you leave your email here
Yeah.
tonight, I will be happy to email all of them to you, anything you want.
When was the last time the subdivision ordinance was updated?
It was. Last. It was recent. Well, I shouldn't say that. Hold on.
That was different.
The blue spinning circle of death.
So I think this is the most recent one.
In 2020, this one.
It was like,
So it was approved and updated to remain. So let me. You guys want to leave an email here? I will be happy to email the ordinance, anybody who wants it.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay, no,
I'll give it back.
I'll just text it tonight.
Are you sure?
Oh, you emailed her already, right? No, I mailed them. Oh, you mailed it?
Hand delivered it.
Yeah, I delivered at 5 in the morning.
Thank you for waiting till 6 to test.
Yeah. I emailed her too. You want your email there too? Thank you.
So in that process, there, I mean, hold on, I can probably put it up.
Is there a way we could print out what, I'm looking at page 2 of it, of the pre-application, so they can see what is being considered?
Well, the groups, the city's got one in their mailbox.
Okay.
I've not delivered one to the Blanchers, but I don't need to put that up in a second. So this is the actual ordinance. It is long. I don't know if we want to go through the whole thing right now, but we certainly could.
So for some reason, I don't read this. Okay.
Diane, you don't have to read the whole subdivision out. We're happy to read it. That's painful.
Oh, it was. So in moving through that, I guess just one, I know what Mrs. Seeker's concerns are, because you expressed them very nicely, thank you. I'd just love to hear your thoughts. I mean, I think we want to hear what they're about, even though
Right.
there will be a formal public hearing at some point if everything goes forward. But in the meantime,
In the meantime, all we have is what you brought up and passed out, because that's all you got at this point. And
correct.
So that's all the information that's available. I'm just saying it out loud for everyone to hear.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not much left.
no, just
So
listening and taking it in.
I was reading some of the updated subdivisions that were proposed by Augusta, the legislature voted on back in 2022. In which it states that, single family homes, depending on the size of the property, can now subdivide. So, and there's certain, areas or the size of the property has to be considered, of course, but there really is no restriction, really. For if you have that size of property. However, they have put out certain guidelines for those who are considering subdivision. For example, sewage and wastewater. Does Canton have enough of those infrastructures in place to sustain these unit apartments? The other thing that they're mentioning is there enough pressure, running water to sustain all of it? Is that in place? And they mentioned that this all has to be in prior to the application. So I didn't see that in the paperwork that I received.
The, when a preliminary plan is put in, and so this is the pre-plan, right, I can never get the words right, but when the next step is done, that would include all the plans for everything, for sewer, for water, and et cetera. It doesn't have, you don't have to have already installed those things, you have to put those elements into the plan.
Right, but from a person who uses the water system presently, the volume and the force of that water is not what the best. It's okay, but it's not unbelievably fantastic. And so my concern is, because I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I hear it's gravity. It's a gravity system.
Well, I mean, if you're that close to the tank, which is the tank that's next to you guys, right, you're not gonna have a lot of gravity. And so
the.
you'd have to put a pump in, or we'd have to put a pump in. to
Right, and so how, how is that going to impact the other people?
Can I just ask her a quick question, which might help a little?
Mhm.
Remember when we were looking at federal funds to expand and grow, when we had the ice storm and we were gonna upgrade? I mean, did we have enough facility already to handle a certain amount of sewage and water at that time, or we would have had to expand and made it a better system? When the units, I remember building more units here in town.
Right now, I think the sewer system has capacity, that's
Yes.
not the problem. I mean, they're like, get us more users on the system, they're very happy with that.
Well, I remember, I didn't think it was an issue to hook up with the sewer, but I'm just trying to remember properly from back in my years on the planning board.
Yeah.
So, it's been a while.
Well, I know they're working on upgrades to the piping is old and all that kind of stuff.
Yes,
but-
I know that, especially from these guys firsthand, they've had some issues.
Yeah.
So. Okay. I just wanted to know, originally when we had we had a flood here.
I was here.
You were here, okay, yeah, and we looked at, expanding, I remember we had a lot of those meetings, I didn't realize you were still in town, I apologize. So I just didn't know if the system was, set
We're
up.
kind of in silos particularly in the winter, we just stay. We come out and look at each other and say, oh, yeah.
I know, you need the mailbox and go, oh, here's your Christmas cookies.
I can't remember you.
So I know, I think, and one of the things you're talking about in those state ordinances is they're concerned if you're using septic. Right,
Correct.
do you have enough septic capacity, but we're on sewer, so.
Correct, they have different subsections in the state. That the state of Maine has delegated, and they're quite in detail.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which was one of the things that I didn't know where we were with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know that when the ordinance was looked at in 23, I think we looked at what the most recent ones were at that point. That they change all the time. So,
This one was published 2022, and it went into effect, I believe, in July of 2022.
mhm.
No, if I might ask a question as
Mhm.
well. One of the things we have to look at in section 7, the subdivision standards, it says. In the case of a subdivision intended primarily for residential use, that the proposed subdivision is in general harmony with the Canton Comprehensive Plan for Future Development of Canton. But then when I look at the comprehensive plan from 2004, that's still in effect, we have the housing section. But the housing section seems to just be about giving us inventory of what's our situation like. It doesn't really tell us what direction we're supposed to be headed in. I know that that's something we've been working on for the comprehensive plan moving forward. But that kind of makes it for a pickle, you know, that first is like, what does the town want to happen here? Because I don't see an answer. So, you know,
Well, it's like the questions in these documents that talk about streetscape. Streetscape is
Hmm.
very subjective.
Yeah.
And so you don't really know. And that's a very preliminary sketch also. I mean, hoping you have more updated something soon. But. And
Well,
I
I
think,
hate to see the old barn fall apart, I'm not gonna lie.
oh, it was, you saw the picture.
Yeah.
Put in
Yeah,
there.
I know how bad it's been over the years, and I
It
have something
was,
you've been wanting to do for a long time, so.
Well, yeah,
I guess I didn't realize how bad it was until I saw the pictures and I was like, well, wow.
I
wow.
know, it was finally do or die. That was the.
Yeah.
Either tear it all the way down and just level it, but the cost to do that is almost, not quite, but almost as much as fixing it.
Right. So I guess back to your question with town water, town sewer, obviously. Engineers would have to come in and make sure that our systems are adequate to allow for this to even happen. I'm assuming, and if it wasn't adequate, then they would say, hey. We need to redo the plan or look at something else, maybe septic or, you know, septic systems or a well or something like that. I'm assuming they would come back and say that.
Right, but I mean, in the details, you know,
Mhm.
details are right there, they're saying that prior to this moving forward, that has to be established initially. before-
Correct.
Absolutely.
Before it can be done.
Yeah, in the ordinance, there's, I think, I can go to that section. There's a huge detail of what has to be included in that preliminary application.
Correct.
And yes, this is not anywhere near a preliminary application. This was just knowing that there's gonna be conversation. Let's have a conversation and get it started, because if we're gonna change something or do something different, like how's the time, like all the way down, and then you have to. So the preliminary plan, which is the next step, has to have all these things. It's a little bit bigger.
I have pulled up if that helps.
Yeah, it has to have the, certainly, whatever, the title, a lot line kind of layout kind of thing, all the abutting information, any connection to what it might look like connected to the road, public water and sewer, well, this is not available. So where public and water and sewer are available, how are you gonna connect to those? You have to be able to show highways, ditches, utility easement structures, all those things have to go into that plan.
Right,
And we know already there's a culvert that crosses from the Wainwright's mailbox over into our land and just dumps on that side of the yard. And we know especially during not this past spring, but a year ago, when we had so much. That culvert got blocked on the Wainwright side, but it made a huge mess. So how are we gonna manage water at that location? That's a big conversation that's already happening. With civil engineers and the road, Andy Toner. He said, don't talk to him until we have a preliminary plan, then he'll come and look at it and offer some opinions on that. But that's.
and the other question I had is, noise control, because I am right next to the barn.
Mhm.
Just. I don't want any misunderstanding, I'm not in favor of this, okay, just so that you know. And so I have a lot of question as being the neighbor, actually, because I have lived near an apartment, I lived in an apartment building. I know how it could get ugly and ugly fast. And so I have a lot of questions of what could happen.
I think we're all here to some degree about that. I work in the court system, he was a police officer, we used to see this every day and did protection orders, so I ran protection orders. But, you know, we're just interested in, you know, Diane's just presenting information,
No,
right?
I understand,
But-
but that's why,
But yes, we're also curious. I mean, when you do bring in low income housing, there can be sometimes issues.
So how do you define low income housing?
True.
I think it depends on the program itself, because it's some, like, for example. You know, we had the discussion, 80%,
Of area median income.
right, so if the program itself defines it as low income, and we'd have to see what the what the grant requirements were. I know that the term that's more favorable, and you know, 80% of the median, I think,
Area median income.
would be, you know,
It's like $60,000 for this particular, for affordable housing.
right,
Is what they're calling it. So
Right.
Affordable housing allows you to rent to people who make 80% of area median income. And I think the reason we started down this path originally was when we started on the plan pre-COVID, right? That the process on that plan fell apart during COVID and is slowly ramping back up. But we looked at housing numbers as a committee, and it was pretty staggering.
Oh,
to
it's
look
terrible.
At
We have such a shortage.
a shortage, but also the houses that are being built in Canton, especially, are all $250,000+ homes.
Yeah.
Right, we got an estimate for a garage with an apartment over it, and it came in at $340,000. I'm like, it's a freaking garage, you know, really, you know, and so people, people in town can't even afford the houses. And at the time, we
That's
had.
why I married a contractor, it's helpful that way.
I know, You're in my office, thank you.
No, I'm sorry, I'm taking it.
Yeah, it was, and so that.
For the tip.
That's right. That need became really apparent when you looked at those numbers and you're like, wow. And then also, we have a soft spot for old people, right? And between people we know that are trying to get into senior housing and can't get into senior housing,
Yes, of course.
there's just no housing available. And so we've looked at what could you do with something like
And
this?
those generally are quieter, generally.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing, can I mention, just looking at like what you put.
She's like, it's crazy.
Let me find it here.
Except Robin's.
It's an 8-unit design that is going to encourage single people and couples, but not families with children. So,
It's a one, I mean, the design is on the table now,
The one bed.
is 1-bedroom units.
Yeah.
And that way you can't get big families in there legally, can only have.
So Diane, you said what defines low income housing. Is this gonna be subsidized housing?
It's what they call affordable housing by the state. And
I mean,
so,
Section 8 or anything like that?
well, Section 8,
That's low income housing, the way I look at
Well, it
it.
used to be called that, yes.
Apartments.
is it not called Section 8 anymore?
no, it's called voucher based.
Is it some- yeah.
Something with vouchers, I don't know what that means. I don't know, I'm
So
still
it's
finding
more
out.
politically correct.
No.
Yeah, it isn't. I did ask somebody from Maine Housing recently about that delineation, like how do you define that differently and are you allowed to, I mean, I know you can't discriminate on a bunch of different things, but you can also put covenants in that say, as a resident, you can have no smoking, you can have no marijuana on the property, which I'm heavily against. You can have, you can limit pets, you can limit all kinds of different things. The sound.
Or people, and how many can be in that.
Well, right, and it was a 1-bedroom, that's limiting by itself.
You would think no more than 2, but someone.
I was gonna say, I know I'm a part of Whitney Brookside, and I know there are a couple kids there. And it's all those units are 1 bedrooms,
Yeah.
and there's no smoking, no pets, but that doesn't mean anything up there.
Well,
Well,
it depends
that's-
on the people, the unit, or who's the property manager and everything else, but.
Right.
There's a guideline that the state of Maine put out, what they define low income housing. And one person, they break it down into 3 sections, extra low, very low, and low income. Person with low income housing, one person, they consider it to be $46,000 in Oxford County. So. That's,
I mean, my question is, you're gonna have an apartment or apartments or whatever you call them.
Mhm.
You're gonna want as much money as you can get for those units. I believe you're not gonna be the kind person who's just gonna let somebody come in and say, hey, I'll give you the rent for, $1,000 a month or whatever. Are you gonna get assistance from the government in order to do this?
As far as I know now, that's not the plan. I mean, I'm just working on the P&L that looks at the whole picture that says, okay, here's the cost it's gonna take to fit out the inside, here's all the cash still has to go into it still, to fit, plus, then at some point you have some rent coming in, right? Then you're gonna have to pay the utilities and the snow plowing and all that kind of stuff at the back end, is how much is left then to pay off any loans that you've had to take out to put into it. So at the end of the day, do you actually make any money? I don't know that yet. And I don't expect it to be a huge moneymaker. I'm not looking at getting wealthy or anything off this. At some point, I would like to get back the money I put into it so far, because Rick's like, what are you doing with your long-term savings? I'm like, I'm putting it in the barn, you know, which is not going over well, so.
You don't have to answer this, but you cleared also the left side of your house, is that for a reason?
That part
You
of
don't
that,
have to tell me, I just was curious.
that had been, a chunk of that had been cleared out as a potential driveway at some point, because we looked at putting a garage in a long time ago.
Yeah.
And when, no. No, and we have talked about maybe putting up a personal garage.
Yeah, for you guys, not
And I
just.
said, that's the best view, is actually right at that. little-
It is a beautiful view.
That, no, I said to Rick,
When we saw the lights the other night, when we were watching the Aurora Borealis, it's good to have that clearing.
I know, I said to Rick, if we build a garage in an apartment and put it out on that spot you're talking about, I said, how about we sell the house to Chris? He might move back with his girlfriend, he'll live in the apartment. I mean,
So you are only planning on doing one unit if you do this.
oh, on that side, if we do anything, yeah, right now, that's just, we're talking about maybe a garage with a.
Yeah. You didn't have to answer, just
For personal use, but at the moment, we just sit out there in our lawn chairs and
yeah, I don't blame you.
enjoy the
I
breeze
do not
and
blame
view and. Very nice.
Joel, I lived outside all summer, so I think you do too, actually.
Well, you guys, I mean, you guys know, because it had gotten grown up so much, you couldn't see anything. And I was get feeling claustrophobic.
And like the breeze on Saturday.
Yeah, that was pretty strong.
The guy that's helping us with the stumps in the back of there, he put down some seed. I sent him that picture with the dust bowls rolling. I said, I'm pretty sure your seed's all over it
Yeah, they're
right now,
probably
it's yard at this point. It was, yeah, it's a mess. And I don't know that the trees were gonna help any at all. I mean, that was howling anyway, but. So that's where we are at this point. I mean, if we're supposed to be getting updated drawings of what the exterior could look like. At some point, like on the thoughts are on the road end of the barn, the big flat end. Putting back a barn door there, and when we cleaned out that barn, which, as you know, has been an all summer project. I've lost 10 pounds, just hauling crap out there. It is, but I forgot that years ago we purchased these two big lantern sconces. And I found those when I cleaned up the barn. They're going on the outside next to the barn door. And several people have stopped and asked, whatever you do, will you put back up the sign that says our view? Which I personally hate it because it's bad spelling. Rick loves it, so he's winning that argument. Our view is going back up. So I think the roadside view at least would look nice like a barn. And so I've asked the architect guy, when you do this, you know, putting some flower boxes and make it look like what it's gonna actually look like at some point. Civil engineers are coming this week to look at the, what a potential road driveway and parking spot could look like. Because I mean, there's certain requirements on how much, like 1% slope, it's gotta meet certain requirements. If you do, one unit would have to be ADA accessible. What does that look like? So there's still a lot of unknowns.
Yes.
It's just. I didn't want to spring it on people, and people have been asking me all summer, I've been saying, we're looking at apartments, so it's not a. Shock.
I think that's good for Canton, they need the time.
Well, Ricky's asking me, when can I put my lawnmower? I'm like, you can't put it back in the barn, it's not going back into the barn, it's not going back in the, oh my goodness, so. What's happening?
I also was looking at the artistic rendering here.
Mhm.
Well, it's actually very, details and maybe. But, and we have the left and the right. It seems like it's equal opportunity viewing from outside the windows. In other words, what I'm saying is if I take a stroll down the road and I'm going to put on sit in a lawn chair at 81 Staples Hill. If someone if people happen to be looking in my direction, it's kind of the way it's rendered right now, it seems like it's equal opportunities staring out the window in 81, looking in your direction, I mean, I guess what I'm
There's
thinking.
windows on all four sides
Right.
in that drawing, so yes.
So that, I guess on the plus side is that whatever is going to happen to 81 is going to happen to 95 in a sense, meaning whatever risks
Yes,
incurred, they're
Yeah.
borne equally.
yes, I mean, and I guess one of the distance between the structure and your property line is bigger than the one between our property line. Which is, if you have to turn it into a separate lot, you've got to have 30 feet from each structure to the property line. That's 60 feet between it, from the corner of that barn to the corner of our house. You guys are much bigger on that side, the longer distance, but, you know, there's certainly things that can be done. I know that we can certainly plant, even though I love the forsythia bushes, we can certainly plant some other kind of, like a big pine tree or something, if you wanted it more of a barrier kind of thing. I don't necessarily think a fence is a great idea, but maybe, I don't know, yeah, we can certainly talk about that and see what that looks like after they come back with it. What that area might look like on our.
Yeah, I received a letter today that surveyor. They didn't say when, but I did get one today.
Is that from mainland?
Pardon?
Is that from mainland?
From Livermore Cross.
Yeah, they told me they're coming Thursday, but that's today,
They didn't say when.
okay. And I didn't know they were coming, I know they have to do the boundary survey and have to look at.
The letter was dated the 14th of October.
They told me they were gonna come Thursday, I didn't see anybody out there today, but
I guess I'd like to know when they're coming.
I can certainly call the person I'm working with there and say, hey, I can give her, is it okay to give them your phone number and have?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. I'm gonna be out of town tomorrow at a funeral, so I'll try to do that tonight before I go.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. As well, probably meets and bounds, right, somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, we found the corner pin the other day, which I've never looked for in 23 years. 23 years, I've never known where that corner pin is, but I found it the other day. I think I might have mowed it years ago at some point accidentally, but, that's the only reason I know is that one that's up by the road. I could have.
No. Good.
You guys go to work and be. We did this for years, have fun.
Well,
Sure you don't wanna
Lots of
join?
love.
I'm thinking it'll be late November before that preliminary plan is in place.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is what I understand is by the time they get the stuff that needs to go into that.
Well, it takes time, it's a lot, it's a big process.
Probably final, but it's final, and then it'd be December, but. Good. And maybe we'll just have a really damn good stage.
You guys have fun.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks.
Good seeing you again.
Somebody
We
should-
love having you. in the
Somebody's
meeting.
looking their bag.
But I heard, I can't get in the car without it, so.
Hope that's lots
My
of money.
keys are in there,
Are you guys going to another party?
We can answer more if you want more.
Yeah.
No, I'm just wondering if more is gonna be discussed, you know.
I think we were just gonna maybe reiterate the process. I think, because not everybody was here last week when we talked about that.
Okay.
You're more than welcome to stay.
Huh?
You're more than welcome to stay.
Yeah. And I'll email that. I just-
All right, yeah, no, yeah, because the other thing is just new members and cluster housing ordinance and flood plan management is the other stuff, right?
Correct.
Um,
And you'll email us the ordinances?
Yes. Okay.
And there is a website for the town of Canton, is there any way that could be put in there?
What, the ordinance is putting in?
They're working on it. They just got the town website up and going, and I know they're working. Aaron's working on getting things put in. Cause there's a calendar now, stuff we've never had. So slowly it's happening. Still not the ground.
I can tell you, I mean, a lot of people in town go to that, so you know you're from Canton, Maine.
Yeah,
Thing too, if people have asked for copies of ordinances, I've posted them there.
Oh, that
People
looks a
can
lot
download
better.
them from there if they want them as well.
I know that the challenge that,
I'm not a Facebook person.
Yeah, neither am I. So it looks, so I haven't been to their website in a while. They have a section where they're going to be putting all the ordinances. It's Yeah.
Cause I know
Hopefully
yesterday
this
they
is-
were working on tax bills, getting them out.
You weren't sure, so.
So this is what the site looks like now. This has completely been revamped and
Oh,
eventually
and that will be,
they'll all be ready here.
okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome.
You're welcome, and I'm
Have a good
sorry,
night.
I felt like we hadn't really talked to the groups, and we've talked as you walk the dog and stuff, but the groups, we hadn't really talked about it, and I felt like. I just want to give you all the same information that everybody else was getting at the same time, so I apologize for just leaving it in your mailbox.
No, it's fine, it's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I don't know what this is doing, but I'm closing. It's done it a couple of times. Maybe it's still working, I don't know.
I don't know, it seems,
Because.
that's playing, is it still recording?
Huh.
I don't know. That's playing though, right? That's showing it, oh no, it's back here. I guess it's recording now.
Oh, that's the playback of it, because you got Zoom open down here.
Okay,
I don't like Windows PCs anymore. There we go, okay. All right.
Should have asked her, if I can't read it, is that a L? Losey?
How are you? Whose email was
Yeah,
that?
that's, I'm guessing that's, I'll stop at her house, that's Blanchard's. His name is Joel, but
Joel.
I don't know what that means. I'll text her, I'll find her.
I might have Joel's email.
Cool.
I mean, I can see some of their concerns, but on the flip side of it, I don't know if you want to talk about this anymore. Looking at what the structure is now and what it's gonna become, I think it'll actually benefit the town. In terms of tax revenue coming in, because now your property taxes will be higher on the assessed value of it. Sorry. So that aspect of it, and
And beautification, nothing against your old barn, but it'll look nicer.
Well, I think you could find cases on both sides of the story.
Yeah.
Of
And
whether
that's it.
multi-unit housing in a largely residential area is good for the neighborhood or bad for the neighborhood. There's
Right.
certainly cases where it's been bad, and you'll find just as many cases there. There's cases where it's been good, and there's a lot of reasons on both sides of that coin. Our job is to make sure it stays good and positive. Yeah.
And I feel like limiting having one bedroom, you're very limiting your potential
Right.
occupants. You know,
Yeah, we looked at another model that had, I call it the townhouse model, that had 5 units, but they had 2 floors. Most of them had 2 bedrooms, they had cathedral ceilings, it was a much nicer thing. I mean, not nicer, bigger, they were much bigger. But you certainly couldn't make it affordable housing. To do that, you'd have to charge market rates. That, which is another option, and I think that's probably plan B. But we'll see. I have to look at demand.
Mhm.
Let's see what the-
well, I know, Whitney Brookside's always got a waiting list.
Yeah.
Always.
Well, I mean,
And that's,
Wyatt was looking at Auburn and he couldn't find anything that didn't require at least 1 roommate, maybe 2 roommates to get. A place to get started as a new young person kind of getting off the ground, and he was making 30-some thousand a year, he just couldn't find anything that's gonna.
well, when I've seen ads for the ones over the post office, I'd have died of what the rent is there. Of course, I have, obviously have no idea of rental. I've never had to worry about it either, but I was amazed.
Well, some of the newer apartments in Auburn, the newly constructed, like if you go near Dairy Queen in Auburn, you know what I'm talking about, that part? I think they're running like $1,600 a month, of course, you're getting new construction. And so, but if you think about what they're getting for it, it's a pretty penny. I guess a lot of it might come to location, maybe school, district, et cetera, but.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, the city of Lewiston has a housing complex that's going in on. Hold on, it was in the Sun Journal, and they've actually got a waiting list for people to get onto it, but it's.
I've had several people ask me, can they get on a list for the apartments already? And
Yeah.
one of them is like Stephanie. Stephanie Rose, Archie Ray's wife, I mean. You're being recorded. Archie's wife, Stephanie. Her sister wants to move here from the West Coast
mhm.
and wants to be close to them.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
so she's already reached out and said, hey,
Family too,
might I be able to live with you?
kind of,
Yes.
fine.
Yeah, and so, I don't know, I have a soft heart for people who need help, and I feel like that's a. Cause Rick is not always a big, he doesn't like that we have. People driving in and out of our house all the time, like, we're the strays, he calls them, you bring home strays, like, I do, because there's a need.
Right.
And we have space, why would I not share my space? I just don't understand that, but I do understand his need for privacy, but
Yeah, they can be in the barn now.
that's right.
Yeah, but the thing that I saw there was the city of Lewiston, it was in like one of their downtown areas. Nice looking development, but they had it set up so that, you know, it was, I want to say it was like 100 or 200 units. But X amount of units were designated for this income bracket, and then this one, then they had some that were gonna be fair market.
If
So-
you are, yeah, I took a class last year. And got certified in low income housing tax credits,
Mhm.
which don't relate to this because we're not doing it that way, but if you're running a big development. And the people who are investing in the development want the tax credits from it.
Right,
There's a whole formula for what percentage of your units have to be at market rate and what can be in the low income housing. This is something in the middle, this is like affordable housing, so it's actually higher income levels
right.
that you can allow there. And I forget, there's a word for what used to be. Voucher based something.
And I should know with my
Housing
clientele that
choice.
in my certain type of cases I work in, I should know, but I'm drawing a blank, sorry.
Choice based vouchers. And I don't know exactly how that works yet. I got a meeting with somebody to find out, because I don't know if that applies or not. Breakfast, lunch and dinner in a little tiny bar.
Hey, chocolate's all a food group.
Is. So on your. On your agenda,
I know we rescheduled from the last meeting that two of us couldn't attend for Monday night. I can't come Monday night.
This Monday?
we had a tentative.
Yeah, I have a Region 9 class that I'm supposed to do. I'm repurposing jeans.
There you go.
From what I've seen in stores, all you have to do is rip them up and throw paint and you
So,
can mark them up in
yeah.
place.
With what you wanna do with the barn, you have to subdivide it.
Because we're adding.
They are pricey.
Rolling
aren't they?
units.
Okay,
So,
alright,
The more holes.
So I have Monday the 21st with a question mark, planning board makeup day.
21st.
Because it's coming Monday.
Cause I had forgotten.
I don't think I have anything that day.
okay, Monday
Do
the
you wanna see something
21st.
crazy?
Oh, I have it in my.
You wanna see what 10 years can do? So that's now. And that was 10 years ago.
Oh, that's my mother-in-law's car down there. Oh, that was before it collapsed, right?
That was
Well, that-
May of 23.
I don't know.
Kinda cool.
I'd love to get this. Sure. There's a picture of the barn. He's aging at 10 years, like backing it up
Oh,
10
Yeah,
years.
Go to Google Maps and then go to Street View, and then it'll show you the different times of when they were there.
So
So,
he's got the front of the barn 10 years ago, and I'm lucky he's got my
Oh,
mother-in-law's Plymouth Acclaim in front of it, which Emily was driving.
well, you know what? That'd be nice. This is on Google Timeline.
on, just
Google Maps?
Just Google Maps.
Because I'll tell you what, I
So
Would love to take another look at the
That's-
maple trees on the other side of the road.
now.
Tunnel is done.
I know. I've thought about starting a Staples Hill campaign to see if people wanted to replant all those
So-
maples.
Oh, that, sign me up.
Where were?
There was a nursery that was offering a deal on, they would come and like tell us exactly what kinds of maples we needed, how far to put them apart. And if we bought whatever we needed, 20 for the street or whatever, they would come and help us plant them. I had this all worked out some years ago and nobody seemed to have any interest in it but me, so.
Yeah,
I
you
dropped
can,
it.
you
We
can
made
go
the
in.
inquiry when they decided to cut the maple. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Just-
Let's say, yeah, if you go in Street View, you can go back 10 years ago and.
They're the trees.
And with all the trees.
I mean, I know there was concern about the trees, but I was really hoping they'd replant, but, oh well.
Yeah, I know, well, since I've been back, they've cut several down on the Staples Hill. And people fussed, and then they're like, well, we could try, and then. Some of the homeowners were happy if the town were going to buy the trees and plant them and all that for them, but when they found they had to. It was on them.
Well, I know the clerk, the clerk that we had a couple of clerks ago, she looked
Yeah,
into the price. And I know the select board. Hello, I know that their concern was, well, if we do it for your street, we'll have to do it for other places.
Well,
but-
so that's where the comprehensive plan, if we put in there things like town beautification. And you could start to say, what if we looked at every single street and committed X amount of funds per street or per resident, or you figured out how many people live on that street or whatever.
Yeah,
Numbers of people, and we committed X amount of funds over time to do that. What if we built, over 10 years, really beautified the whole town? I mean, I think there's all kinds of things you could do, but
Right.
people, you have to think
outside the box.
big scale. And make it then doable in small steps, because people go, "Oh, that's way too big, I can't think about that. They don't understand, right? So you have to
Right.
break it into small enough steps that people can see how it works.
boat lunch, little things, yes, yeah.
So we're on the calendar now for a planning board makeup day at 6 PM on the 21st.
Okay. I think I can.
Okay. I will send a note to the town office.
Make sure you include Aaron because
Yeah.
Kathy's gone.
Hmm.
Where is she? Not gone, just.
No,
Okay.
not yet, no. Sorry.
That's good. All right.
All right, so possible new members, we can take that off of new business at the moment.
Well, I do want to tell you who, Mike Files, who lives up on Staples Hill, one house down from Brad and across
That's
from
right.
Michelle Larrabee. Apparently Michelle talked to him and maybe you've talked to him too.
I have not, but I saw him on my way down. I almost was thinking he might have wanted to say something, but I didn't want to be late for the meeting, so I don't know if his intent was to say anything, so.
It's hard
But
to tell.
I just waved, but I think he might have had some interest, I mean.
Well, Michelle said that, or is he, apparently Michelle gave his name to the town office. I don't
Right.
know if he's filled out any paperwork.
He has.
I got paperwork from, for Dawn Everly, who's also very interested. And she's I think perhaps more interested in the comprehensive plan development, so,
Oh,
and the first thing that I think Kathy had said to me was, well, we already have somebody, we don't need anybody else. And I said, well, first of all, you don't even know that he's gonna actually sign up. He's never been to a meeting. I don't know that he understands what the commitment is. I said,
And-
let's get paperwork for both people, because maybe she could just be assigned to work on the planning
Yeah.
committee, which is like a subcommittee.
Well, I do know he was a write-in candidate for whatever election we just had, and he turned it down.
Right, so
So,
I don't know what's going on, but we'll.
yeah, but
we'll
it's
find
up
out,
to
but at
the
least-
selectmen and.
Now,
it's on
whatever.
company.
Dawn Everly is a mature woman. She is she grew up here, moved away, spent most of her adult life other parts of the country, moved back a few years ago. And is related to Kathy Hutchins, who used to be the town clerk.
I noticed that online. I did a search, because I want to know who are the candidates, so to speak, potential candidates. And I went on her Facebook, but I think she had pictures more of other people or other things than herself, so I didn't know what she looked like, because I'm good at faces. If she just moved back, I wouldn't know what she looks
She's
like.
been back 3 or 4 years. In fact, if you go down 108, Bob's Sharpening that's on the left.
Yes,
Right past his driveway, there's a driveway that goes up and there's a house and a trailer that they have there with a nice garage with a red roof, bright red roof.
They've just remodeled it
okay.
all.
This side or this side?
This
On the
side.
same side as Bob Sharp.
Oh, the same side. Oh,
Just
okay.
one driveway past.
New driveway up in the hill.
It's not, yeah, you can see it from the road, and it's not like
Yeah.
way up in the woods.
Yeah,
Before
her-
the sharpening service and after, if you're heading from Auburn. To you.
Before.
Okay,
I met. Great conversation, and her sister said to me, she'd like to be on the planning board. I'm like, really? You are now my new best friend. Tell me all about what you want to do and why do you want to do it, and
and the gentleman she lives with grew up in Canton.
yes, yeah, we had a nice conversation. We went to a 50th birthday party and it had this thing up on the wall about the date this person was born. In like 1976 or 74, must be 74 if this is 50 years old. I'm like, oh, because they had like Elton John, this is probably the music at the time, what was going on, I'm like, I was living that at the time this person was born.
Yeah.
That was not good.
Yeah.
All right, let me go back to this. So our agenda for today. So I'll keep inviting them to both. I did send her, you guys got, I copied you on her email. So you have her email, have her address. I texted her, I think, as well and said, hey, I just sent an email on this. That I have not heard back. So. I may swing by and drop off the paperwork. But it's an office left that she would need to fill out to be on the planning board. All right, cluster housing ordinance. You all have a copy of this in front of you.
Right.
But let's do floodplain because I have that one open.
Okay.
Someone asked me about this the other day too. They said they were at some event and they go, we don't have a floodplain ordinance. I'm like, yes, we do. The copy I have up here was I converted it from the PDF and so it's got a lot of weird stuff in it, but like. This is what happened to me because you can convert it, but
Okay.
but I think that most of the content should be at least usable. This was the 2009, so it's, oh, this one's only 15 years old. So yeah, this does, if you look at the article, the purpose and establishment, this is important here because we are a participating community in the National Flood Insurance Program. Which is a requirement that you have a floodplain management ordinance. So we don't have that many people in town who are carrying national flood insurance because nobody local is gonna insure you.
Mhm.
Right, so the only way you can get insurance for a house in the flood zone is on a national level.
It's gonna be expensive.
It is expensive, which is why most people in town don't have it, even if their
Yeah.
house is in the floodplain. So we did the buyout program. Because a lot of houses flooded and a lot of stuff on School Street.
Mhm.
That were taken down were houses that flooded repeatedly. So not only is their initial insurance expensive, but because they had repeated floods, their premiums were super high. People couldn't afford it, and they also could not afford to repair their homes, so we had. Not all the homes that were taken down were in disrepair, but I'd say over half of them were in serious disrepair. Because the people who just couldn't afford to fix them up after the flood. I mean, I saw walls open to the studs because the drywall had gotten wet. I saw a place on the second floor where you could look down next to the window and you could see all the way down the wall, 2 floors down. So like walls had pulled away from the studs. I mean, it was just horrendous how people were living because they couldn't afford to fix them. It was a bit of this misnomer because the buyout program was partially funded by FEMA monies, which is the NFIP stuff. Because they say if you could take a house that is repeatedly damaged and they have to do repeated insurance payouts, right? They had a whole formula, cost benefit analysis formula. And if the score was 1 or higher, it's to the benefit of the flood insurance program to remove that house off for them to buy out that home and take it off the risk place altogether.
That was on its own, I mean, before, that program was already in existence before the buyout, in other words.
Yeah, that was a nationally competitive program that we applied to for that money.
And that organization would have taken that action even here in Canton on its own, so to speak, or or it was part of this was, I might have missed something. You're saying that this was these were requirements of the program that we were getting involved in, or is it?
The ordinance was a requirement of the NFIP, so and we became a member in like a long time before that. And this happened to be an updated ordinance in 2009,
Yes,
but this was an update of an earlier one.
okay, got it.
So Canton had a floodplain ordinance before the bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
I talked to someone the other day who was very clear about, I said, I don't know, somebody asked me about. I didn't know that Carl and his wife are building a home in the floodplain, which we never saw.
Where's
It
that?
was done, it's on the end of well, not on the end, Ranger Mill Road, Gilbertville. A previous code enforcement gentleman okayed their application.
And it's in the flood zone?
Yeah, now other people have said to me, oh, what happens is we get people will buy their flood insurance. I guess you can build in the flood zone if you meet certain requirements, and you elevate your house, you buy insurance, blah, 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 and then as soon as they get the house built and they get the occupancy permit, they cancel the insurance.
Right.
So you're kind of circumventing the intent there. I don't know what needs to be updated on this. We really haven't looked at it. And it may just be formatting. We should probably look at what this.
So it's the
State's doing.
fourth paragraph at the beginning for purpose and establishment has got MSRA numbers on it. We should double check to see if any of those have been.
I always love doing that, as you know. Well, let's see, ordinance power, that's still there. Actually, let me look at the whole chapter to see, and it's all in blue, meaning none of this is repealed, so that's, the 3001 to 3007. And 4352, let's check that out. Zoning ordinances. So that's still good. 4041 to 4407.
They're also mentioned.
Yeah.
But you're looking at that, I'm looking at the next two paragraph down that says
Oh.
this has to do with the FEMA flood insurance rate maps from 2009. We have new ones. I don't know. These may just be the 2009 ones.
Oh,
These are the 2009 ones.
oh, they are the 2000.
Yeah, I don't know that we have any that are more recent than this.
The sections 4401 to section 4407, that's still good. Then we have. Let's see. Oh. Okay, now we've come to something that's changed. Okay, so federal flood insurance is that section, it's been reallocated from. Well, actually, wait a second, there is a section 440, so maybe nothing's changed, let's see, this was adopted. When was this? 2009, and then the latest changes were. Oh, well, it was a change in criteria, but that's within the statute, but there is actually, section 440, so that's good, federal flood insurance is that section name. It said reallocate from title 17, section 4812 cap B. I don't know if we had anything in this ordinance about that one or not, but.
I don't know.
And Canton is still part of the National Flood Insurance Program, for certain.
I'll double check, but I'm sure we are. $720. For one. Yeah, these are all the, these are that's on One, and 2, and 4. And 6. 7, 8, 9. 12.
Okay, federal flood insurance. I mean, that was reallocated back in 1985, so that's where that. Another section.
And 712, yeah, we're on here. Okay. So did this guy ever get a permit? I mean, for them to build that home, it says in our ordinance
But
that.
I'm thinking that. Cause I had that gentleman do some work on my house when he was our code enforcement. I don't think they knew about this. I guarantee he didn't know about it. Because until it
And
came
you're-
up,
100% certain it's in the floodplain,
yeah,
like not like the line and he's 50 feet back from it, kind of a
That
thing.
whole area.
it's out, it's the property beside, have you followed about the water district wanting to put a well out on Ranger Mill Road?
So here's, show us on this map, the floodplain map, where this is.
Go and tell with Robin.
That's right.
I've been out there on the Tucker one night grooming. Oh dear God, it's not in English.
It will be in English.
Is it Ranger Mill Road?
Yes, of the knoll. You know,
Right past the ball field.
yeah. You know that little knoll before you go to the park and ride?
That's Carl's Leader's Farm, and it's the next road on the right.
It's in what I call Villaville.
That does go on.
Huh?
That does.
Yeah, but it still. See. It was still part of the flood. Can we move this? Yeah.
Sure. And then plug it.
Doesn't have a good index.
Because the piece of property right beside it, just past it is flood. This is buyout.
This is further.
That's King Point.
I know. We'll keep it up there. So that's gonna get to the downtown. That's
Brook.
this is Ranger Mill.
Yeah.
And where's, all right, so and where is this person building?
Carl, out here.
Hold on. So this is,
Over the railroad bridge, over in here. There's a school though.
no, that's School Street. Yeah, that's,
Ah.
I'm just saying School Street. This is,
That's just.
Bixby Road. That's where
That's
the
a sewer.
sewer is. This is where this is where Carl's stuff is now.
Yeah,
So that's
So
the
we're,
Crane Brothers.
it's gotta be over here then.
it's past it. No, it's
No, this is the ball field.
it's this way.
Yeah. This is,
So
Ranger Mill Road is this little loopy loop that goes right here.
what does
That's
that
it.
say?
That's Ranger Mill Road.
Okay, so. All right.
So this is Carl's stuff over
So
here.
XX.
You have to go across where the railroad tracks are to get to where he's building.
Okay, so he's back in here.
Yeah.
He's in the blue dots. Which are just considered other flood areas. Like all this floods.
Cause where's the lot that, Sean wants to read?
Ranger Mill Road curves around. Somewhere.
Cause it's right next
Is that
to
this?
Carl's.
That's that area?
Well,
No.
other flood is here. You rip the map, you buy it.
Just crumpled.
That's
Where's that? No,
a special flood area. I'm looking for the blue dots, which is really floodways, I think they're called.
don't see any blue dots.
So zone X are other flood areas. Which is these black, and I think that's just showing the blue overlays where. We've flooded, like there's a 100-year floodplain and there's something else. So zone X's are the black. It's areas of 0.2% annual flood chance, with an average depth of a certain thing. So zone AE is base flood elevation determined. So these are zone AEs. So this is all zone. So I think what they've done is they've gone and measured, and when we measured for the flood buyout, we did elevations of all these houses along all these properties, and this section was amazingly flat.
Okay,
I was really surprised when we did the digital satellite bouncing off elevation kind of thing. I was like, really, because I felt bad because we had to put in every single property. You had to go to the first front door and like measure how they were, and they were almost identical. Like I said, is this instrument reading right? Like I was really not
Right.
sure. And so,
like even when you're coming down, like in this area, like you're on a hill and then you go down.
yeah,
And this road is on, just as you're coming down a hill. So that's probably why this area is not blue. 'Cause
Right.
that doesn't probably flood.
That's where Shirley Rose is and Tooth Acres.
Yeah.
But when it flooded, then they couldn't.
they
go
were
anywhere.
isolated, right?
Yeah.
And that was, the fire department kept saying. And if somebody's in that home and has a medical crisis during a flood, now you've got to try to get EMTs in a boat out to this house, and it
Right.
became, you're putting everybody's life at risk. For that one person.
Mhm.
You know what would be really cool is if Google Maps and Apple Maps did flood zones. So that you could like click a button and it would go whoop, and show you.
So
what
the
flood area is.
state, we had a GIS mapping person come to the planning board before you guys got here, and she was fascinating, but what they're doing to digitize all these maps and make them available to the state. I'm like, wait, how do we get access to those?
Yeah.
So that you could do exactly what you're talking about.
It'd be awesome.
And there's probably a way to do that, we just don't know how to do it. Should we have her somebody else come again? She was really,
Oh, that's her.
and talk maybe to, invite this. Okay, so the maps are good. Before any construction or other development as defined in article. Includes the placement of manufactured homes, begins with any area of special flood hazard established in Article 1, a flood hazard development permit shall be obtained from the planning board. So that has to come to the planning board, not the code enforcement officer.
Yeah.
So Carl got a permit from the CEO to build in a flood zone, and it never came to the planning board.
Because, and I'm not using this as an excuse, but until this got brought up when a previous clerk happened to find out about Carl building, and then it came really up when Kenny wanted to put his little thing down there on Russell's.
Right.
Because I know several of the selectmen that have been on the board for a long period did not even know about this.
Right. I've been doing this now, 5 years, and I still keep finding new ordinances that somebody pulls out of the bottom drawer somewhere. That are never ever kept in any one particular place, which just appalls me.
But under color of law, meaning if this CEO, that would be a good argument, a legal argument to say this was under color of law, meaning they thought that this person who should know gave them authorization, and they could probably get a good reason.
Yeah,
for
there's
saying
no
it.
reason, nobody's stopping them.
No.
Nobody's even
No.
attending.
And Carl has certainly enough knowledge and experience of flooding in that area
Hmm.
that, yeah.
All right, the application for flood, just FYI separately, are we still thinking for it over here? Okay. And we're jumping on the agenda, the Tonello solar farm, the one we walked over on Canton Point Road.
Right.
They have reached out and they think they qualify under a medium size, and they've got a copy of the new ordinance. They're gonna resubmit their application shortly for a solar farm over there.
Oh.
Just so you should know. They were just under the limit of the whatever, he said 1 megawatt and above. They were like
but they also had the dimensions, so they're gonna relook at the ordinance and resubmit their application.
And the one behind Pinnacle, I forgot where that fell. What
That was the
range?
large.
Yeah.
We
That
said
was
the
large, and there's only
large
one.
we can
Right.
have.
And I don't think anybody's heard anything more. Remember when the gentleman came about the one that was gonna go out behind the IP mill in Jay, cause it came over into Canton? I
Oh,
don't, he's never, as far as I've heard, contacted the town anymore about it.
Yep, I don't know either. Jay's doing some work on the dam, I believe.
Yes,
And
I've seen that.
somebody called me and asked me about. Does Canton have any ordinances that connect to that dam? I'm like, that dam is in Jay, it is not Canton. I said, if you're gonna do work that. Slows down the water flow and maybe backs up the water flow at some point, so that potentially would flood Canton. You should know that, we should know that, and you should at least alert the select board that.
We do,
Doing
that is Canton, cause Canton gets tax revenue off that.
After
that island.
No, part of the Riley Dam.
Okay. Well, I said, why are you calling me? Well, the John Office gave us your name, I'm like,
Cause
damn it.
last year when we had the flash flooding, I took one of the selectmen long-term, had never been down to the Riley Dam, and I'm like, what?
Well, all right. All right, application for a flood hazard development permit should be submitted. Here's another application that we need to put together, like flood
Mhm.
hazard permit.
Mm-hmm.
And shall include, it tells you exactly what goes on the flood hazard permit. Items H through K2. The elevation in relation to the national geodetic vertical datum, or to a locally established datum in zone A. Only of the base flood, the proposed site of all new substantial structures. In zone A, okay, so these are all things you have to put on your permit. Highest and lowest grade at the site adjacent to the wall of the proposed building, lowest floor including basement, and whether or not such structures contain a basement. How will be flood proofed? A description of an elevation reference point established on the site of all development. A written certification by a professional land surveyor, registered professional engineer, architect. That the base flood elevation and grade elevation shown on the application are accurate. Following certifications as required in Article 6. All right. Wow, there's a lot of good building in the flood zone.
Do it. That's my thing, don't do it.
Oh, it just doesn't make any sense. So non-refundable application fee, that's something else on the fee schedule, a floodplain building permit fee. So we pay the town clerk, blah, blah, blah. Additional fee may be charged if the planning board or board of appeals needs the assistance of a professional engineer or other expert. Review standards for flood hazard development permit applications. So the planning board has to review all these things.
By the way, there's a state recommended model ordinance for this, because I said this language seems too,
Convoluted.
to just have been made up. So I put in the phrase, the elevation in relation to the national geodetic vertical datum. And it pulled up dealing with unnumbered A zones in Maine floodplain management. This is from from Maine. And it talks about a model, state recommended model ordinance. So I'm sorry for interrupting, but I thought if there's a model one, then certainly we're gonna wanna keep
Good.
track of that.
Do you want to send a link, that link to everybody?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to find the model.
And I mean, I know that. Nobody in 2009 on the planning board wrote this. They did not. They didn't write.
I figured it came straight from state.
Comes from state.
Let's see. Really good.
So I'm just skimming through it. I'm not seeing any big changes. You have to have looking at what's been happening in North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee, I mean, our
Right.
whole town's completely gone.
Here we go, floodplain ordinances and permit forms from the Department of Agriculture. I'll send it to everybody. Conservation
Thank you.
Forest.
I'm worried about things like manufactured homes, but I mean, any home can come off its foundation and.
Well, I have a picture from the 36 flood where Brian's house used to be, and the only thing that saved it was a tree because it came off the foundation. And then it got moved up to where it is now. And they've obviously built those homes a lot better
Right?
then.
Yes. So you could look at when your town last updated and it says what changes have taken place and they go back historically, so you can actually update it based on when your town last. So let me send that out. Okay.
Cool.
It's ready.
I know they're talking about floodways connected to like rivers and oceans and things, but let's put a wharf and a pier and a dock in your house in the flood zone. So people can boat right up and tie off. It's
Well, I've joked about, I have lakefront property every now and then.
Yes.
I had a duck out in the lake, my lake last year.
Who issues the certificate of compliance? This ordinance has oh, maybe that's just because no, this one has question marks. Like, it's not filled in. My God. So I'm on page 10, under Article 7, certificate of compliance. So no land in a special flood hazard area shall be occupied or used, and no structure which is constructed or substantially improved shall be occupied until the certificate of compliance is issued by and it's got 3 question marks. So,
How did that get through?
I don't know, subject to the following provisions, and there's more on the next page. I don't think they knew who had the authority to issue a certificate of compliance. That's worth taking a look at.
Within 10 working days, whoever shall.
I'm thinking that this would have to be, can the code enforcement officer I'll ask Scott if the code enforcement officer is able to determine compliance with an ordinance, or does an engineer have to do that?
So, yeah, because my question is, obviously Carl will have a well out there, has a well. But what about septic?
Yeah, well, let's.
I mean, how do you? How? With the rules and laws like they are now. Does he have to have like a compost toilet or?
How far along are they in building that?
When I was out there this winter, he just had it bare minimum frame.
So I'm searching this right now for septic. I don't see anything. I'm searching for wastewater and I don't see anything.
So they figure it'll all
Oh,
wash
there's a
away.
sewer.
Oh, I saw something in the beginning of this, when skimming through this.
Oh, wait, this is subdivision. Why do I have some? No, it's sewer one. Oh, sewer has one result. Hold on. All public-
Sewage.
Okay, 6 results for sewage, sorry. So, minor development is defined somewhere on page 18. Storage of equipment, which is the public sewage disposal system is considered a minor development. You have to have a statement as to the type of sewage system proposed. Up to back to page 6, the flood hazard development permit has to talk about public or private sewage disposal. They define the sanitary sewage system. And again, in a minor development, it talks about the definition of public and private sewer, so. I don't know if it says, that's a good question.
On page 6, it basically just says that it has to be in a way that it won't, avoid impairment to them and contamination from them during floods.
Right, so on page 6, yeah, sanitary sewage systems, right, you have to be designed and located to minimize or eliminate. Infiltration of floodwaters into the system and discharges from the system getting into the floodwaters. I know in the shoreline zoning, there's a very specific requirement, if you're gonna put a septic system. Anywhere within 75 feet of the shoreline zone, you gotta, it's a very special system you have to put in.
Like a holding tank.
Well, it's
Or
gotta be
something.
closed, it's got certain pressurization,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of stuff that has to go into that, because that one lady submitted an application for one.
Yeah.
Quite late, but she did one.
So if also, wouldn't that kind of, some of this fall under, if the water district did move out to the lot beside Carl's? Cause he would have to have a bathroom there and all that.
I have no idea what he's doing.
Porta potty, you can float away.
Nobody's ever.
We've had that happen. In December at the park, the Fall Diamond.
So I would say before our next meeting, which is now Monday, maybe read through this in more detail. See what else we might want to change, and maybe Brad, I'll try to get that one offline and see if we can find a more current, or maybe even some neighboring. Floodplain management ordinances and see.
And I was showing to Robin too, is that they also show the updates along the way, which is convenient, you know, that they list this out, you know. But
So what's the latest update?
the latest was in 2015. And then before that was 2009. This was promulgated in 2009, so I wonder if there was correlated, if there was a correlation.
State update, all right. Cool. So we could put cluster housing on the next one too.
Okay.
But you have a copy of it, I printed one for everybody, so.
Yep.
You read your cluster housing ordinance.
Will do.
And thinking about that, just the intent there, when the state was promoting cluster housing, was saying. A lot of, they were trying to prevent urban sprawl,
Right,
which is a lot of what we have in our community, which is everybody has a. Whatever, 2-acre lot, and you just have to put this little. They rather, or they were saying, if we wanted to keep the. More natural resources, could you have denser housing in certain parts of a town or a community and then have more open space? So do you put houses closer together, therefore like a smaller lot size, but have a park? Where all those
Right.
people could then go out and play and aggregate. There was a whole, years ago, there was a whole theory of community development. That said, oh, you're gonna have more integration with your neighbors, you're gonna have more interaction, you have a better sense of community if you have these gathering spots. Like the park, the playground.
Right.
Or, you know, a pavilion with a grill and, you know, whatever. If you had places where people could go and interact together. It made for a stronger community than if you had everybody having their little backyard grills, you know, in a little.
I like my back. I like
I
that.
know. I grew up in a post-World War II development where everybody had their 1/4 acre lot.
Yeah.
And every third house was identical, like, and most of them were ranches, like a ranch, some were left and right-handed, you know, right, and some were these bi-levels, and sometimes there's left and right-handed. That was the only difference, and most people fenced off their little 1/4 acre lot.
Right.
So we knew how to to get to your neighbor on the next street, just hop the quarter fence in the backyard, you know, it was a whole different. But there were sidewalks everywhere, and so you rode your bike and walked.
Mhm.
I mean, there was a sense of community, but you
Oh,
did
yeah.
go to the playground with the school.
well, certain towns are kind of designed more like that, for example. When we first moved to Maine and we lived my family rented a house in Dixfield on Pine Street. And it was a nice place while figuring out where we were gonna end up ultimately,
Yeah.
but Dixfield, you know, you can actually walk street by street by street, you know, you can actually, it's more accessible in that sense. I'm not saying one is better than the other, it's just a different
Right.
setup.
Yes.
So,
So there was a meeting. Monday, no, Tuesday, Tuesday night.
Tuesday.
Was about, there's a group across the state that's trying to help build capacity for resilience. In towns in Maine, and some of it's disaster recovery, like what happens if you have a flood or an ice storm. And but some of it is long-term planning, like how do you, what things, it ties very closely into the comprehensive plan. But they had a grant for them to help build resiliency, so they came to the town and said, do you want to sign on with us? And the town's like, okay, it doesn't cost us anything, we'll do it. So these people came in, they gave you an assessment, and the select board went through and did the initial assessment of what they thought the town was at risk for and what they thought perhaps you could do with some potential action. And so that was the meeting Monday, was to share that information.
just recently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think there was like 6 people who showed up for the meeting, so they're like, how do we get more people involved? Like, you might have to go door to door.
Yeah.
And let people know what's happening, because if you're not, people are rejecting a lot of social media, so if you're not on social media, how else are you gonna hear about it?
The newsletter, the Canton Crier, if you can put it ahead enough, you know.
Yeah, I need to, we just did the Lake Association newsletter. And it's so different than the town one. I'm like, there's no use, I mean, there was limited useful information in the town newsletter. Like, it isn't. Okay, cleanup days are here, here's the phone number to call for these things if you need them, but it wasn't as informative as it could have been. And I think these people don't have time to do it necessarily, but.
There could be a lot more information in it.
Yes. Yes.
There must be
Okay.
some aspiring author and who's a high school student who could do it. Just like other things that I can think of. You just tap a high school student, they could probably get it done quickly. Anyway, just a thought, save money even.
There is gonna be a haunted trail.
Oh, yeah, that was
Yes.
fun.
There is. We don't have a drama coach at Derigo, so the kids will not be. It will be adults.
Hmm.
Okay,
Could you ask for kid volunteers?
I put it out there. We would love to have kid
what about the
volunteers.
kids that were in drama last year that are not in it now because there's no
I
drama?
don't. I have asked Brian if he put it out there. I don't know that they
Yeah. Okay,
have. Cause
I motion to adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor?
But yeah, we had a meeting last night to see if we had enough crazy people to do it. I think we're gonna try, but.
I always stop this.
It's gotta be red button somewhere.
Just